The icy water rushed through the shattered windows as the school bus teetered on the bridge's edge, 30 children screaming inside. Caleb Ward didn't think. He just dove. What he didn't know was that the twin girls he'd pull from that sinking metal tomb belonged to Vivian Stone, the billionaire whose companies owned half of Wyoming. Their chance meeting would ignite a battle between two worlds, where pride collides with power, and love emerges from the most unlikely places. Stay with me to discover how a single act of courage transformed not just two lives, but an entire community. And hey, drop a comment about which city you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. The morning sun hadn't yet kissed the peaks of the Teton Range when Caleb Ward's alarm clock rattled against the nightstand. 4:30 a.m. Same as every morning for the past 3 years, ever since Margaret died and left him alone to raise their daughter Emma. He rolled out of bed, his joints protesting with the familiar ache of a man who'd spent more nights sleeping in hospital chairs than he cared to count. "Dad?" Emma's voice drifted from the doorway, soft and drowsy. At 14, she'd inherited her mother's delicate features but Caleb's stubborn streak, a combination that both warmed and worried his heart. "Go back to sleep, sweetheart. Still got 2 hours before school. The Johnson's mare is foaling today. You promised I could help." Caleb pulled on his worn work boots, the leather cracked and stained with years of Wyoming mud. "After school. Doc Stevens will be there by then." Emma lingered in the doorway, her strawberry blonde hair catching the amber glow of the hallway light. "Mom would have let me stay home." The words hung between them, not accusatory, but wistful. Caleb crossed the room and kissed the top of her head. "Your mom also would have wanted you to ace that history test. Now back to bed." As Emma shuffled away, Caleb caught his reflection in the mirror. 35 years old, but the face staring back looked a decade older. Deep lines carved by sun and sorrow framed eyes that had seen too much. His calloused hands told the story of a man who'd built his life from scratch, only to watch half of it slip away in a sterile hospital room 3 years ago. The Ward Ranch, if you could still call 40 acres and a handful of livestock a ranch, sat in the shadow of greater operations. While the Stones and Richardsons counted their holdings in thousands of acres, Caleb measured his success in smaller victories. Another month's mortgage paid, Emma's braces finally coming off, the truck lasting one more winter without major repairs. He stepped onto the porch, breathing in the crisp October air. The first snow would come soon, and with it, the harsh reality of another Wyoming winter. The barn needed a new roof. He could see daylight through the rafters in 3 places. The fence along the eastern pasture had been patched so many times it looked like a jigsaw puzzle, and the combine harvester he'd bought used 5 years ago was making sounds that promised an expensive repair bill he couldn't afford. "Morning, ladies," Caleb called to the 6 dairy cows waiting by the gate. They lowered in response, their breath forming small clouds in the cold air. Milking was meditation for him, the rhythmic sound and motion clearing his mind before the day's real work began. By 6 o'clock, he'd finished the morning chores and was heading into town with 2 steel thermoses of milk for the farmer's market. Cedar Valley, Wyoming, population 2,847, was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone else's business, whether you wanted them to or not. Main Street consisted of a general store, a diner that hadn't changed its menu since 1987, a bank that still used pneumatic tubes, and a collection of shops that survived more on stubbornness than profit. "Caleb Ward, you're looking rougher than a coyote's breakfast," Martha Henderson called from behind the counter of Henderson's general store. At 73, Martha had appointed herself the town's unofficial mother, dispensing advice and casseroles with equal enthusiasm. "Charming as always, Martha." Caleb set one of the thermoses on her counter. "Fresh this morning." Martha's eyes narrowed as she studied him. "When's the last time you ate a proper meal? And I don't mean whatever Emma's been cooking." "She's getting better. Only burned the eggs twice this week. That girl needs a woman's influence." Martha's tone softened. "It's been 3 years, Caleb. Margaret wouldn't want you living like a monk." "Martha, I'm just saying the Harvest Festival is coming up. Plenty of nice women would be happy to share a dance with you. That new teacher from Cheyenne seems sweet. Rebecca something or other." Caleb collected his payment. $15 that would go toward Emma's college fund, and headed for the door. "I'll think about it." "You'll do no such thing, and we both know it," Martha called after him. The truth was, Caleb had tried dating once, about a year after Margaret's death. Sarah from the bank, a nice enough woman with kind eyes, and a laugh that reminded him nothing of Margaret's. They'd gone to dinner twice before he realized he spent both evenings talking about his late wife. Sarah had been gracious about it, but they both knew it wasn't going anywhere. The rest of the morning passed in a blur of manual labor. He repaired a section of fence that the neighbor's bull had destroyed again. He mucked out stalls, spread fresh hay, and checked on the pregnant mare that had Emma so excited. By noon, his back ached and his hands were raw despite the work gloves. He was eating a cold sandwich in the barn when his phone rang. The number was Emma's school. "Mr. Ward?" "This is Principal Morrison. There's been an accident." The words hit him like ice water. The sandwich fell from his hand as he was already moving toward his truck. "Is Emma—" "Emma's fine. She's here in my office. But the bus carrying the elementary school field trip. It went off the bridge at Miller's Creek. We need all available adults for the rescue effort." Caleb was in his truck before Morrison finished the sentence. Miller's Creek Bridge was 8 miles north of town, a narrow crossing over a gorge that dropped 30 feet to the water below. In October, with the fall rains, that creek would be running fast and cold. He arrived at a scene of controlled chaos. Emergency vehicles lined the road, their lights painting the afternoon in shades of red and blue. Parents clustered behind police barriers, some crying, others shouting names. But it was the bus that drew his attention. A yellow coffin tilted at an impossible angle, its front end submerged in the churning water below. Sheriff Tom Bradley grabbed Caleb's arm as he rushed forward. "Caleb, thank God. We need everyone who can swim. The fire department's rescue team is 20 minutes out from Jackson. These kids don't have 20 minutes. "How many?" 32 kids, 2 adults. We've gotten 8 kids out so far. The driver's unconscious, and the emergency exits are jammed against the canyon wall." Caleb didn't hesitate. He stripped off his jacket and boots, ignoring the bite of the October wind against his skin. Other men were doing the same. Jake Patterson from the hardware store, Mike Chen, who ran the Chinese restaurant, Dave Williams from the fire station. "The current's strong," Dave warned. "Anyone who goes in needs to be roped." But Caleb was already climbing down the embankment. The first shock of cold water stole his breath, but adrenaline pushed him forward. He could hear children screaming inside the bus, their voices muffled by twisted metal and rising water. He reached the bus and pulled himself through a shattered window. Inside was chaos, children strapped into seats as water rose around them, some conscious and crying, others worryingly still. The bus driver, an older woman named Betty Morrison, was slumped over the wheel, blood trickling from a gash on her forehead. "It's okay," Caleb shouted over the noise. "We're going to get you all out." He started with the closest child, a boy who couldn't have been more than 7. The seatbelt was jammed, and Caleb had to use his pocket knife to cut through it. One by one, he freed children and passed them through the window to other rescuers who had followed him in. The water was rising faster now, already at seat level. Some of the younger children were standing on their seats to keep their heads above water. Caleb worked mechanically, trying not to think about how many were left, how fast the water was rising, how cold these children must be. "The twins!" A woman's voice cut through the chaos from the shore. "Someone please save the twins." Caleb turned toward the back of the bus where 2 identical girls, maybe 6 years old, were trapped. Their seatbelt mechanism had been crushed by the impact, pinning them in place. The water was at their chests now and rising. "Hold on, girls. I'm coming." He had to swim now, the bus having tilted further into the water. When he reached them, both girls were crying silently, their lips blue from cold. They had the same dark hair, same green eyes wide with terror. "What are your names?" he asked, trying to keep his voice calm as he worked on their seatbelt. "I'm Lily," one whispered. "She's Rose." "Beautiful names. My daughter loves flowers too. We're going to get out of here, okay?" The belt wouldn't budge. The mechanism was completely crushed. Caleb dove under the murky water, feeling along the seat frame. There, a weak point where the impact had bent the metal. He planted his feet and pulled with everything he had. Once, twice, 3 times. His lungs burned for air. The frame gave way with a metallic shriek. He surfaced, gasping, and pulled both girls free. But now the bus was shifting, sliding further into the creek with a grinding sound that sent fresh screams through the remaining children. "Everyone out!" "Now!" Dave Williams shouted from the front. Caleb held both twins against his chest and pushed toward the window. The current caught them as soon as they were outside, threatening to sweep all three downstream. His foot found a rock, and he pushed off, angling toward shore where arms were reaching for them. Someone took Lily. Someone else grabbed Rose. Caleb felt hands pulling him up the embankment, but he shrugged them off and turned back to the bus. There were still children inside. "Caleb, no!" Tom Bradley tried to grab him. "The whole thing's about to go!" But Caleb was already back in the water. He pulled out 3 more children before the bus gave a final, shuddering groan and slipped completely beneath the surface. For a heart-stopping moment, he thought they'd lost whoever was still inside. Then Dave Williams emerged from the far window with the last child, and Betty Morrison was being pulled free by Mike Chen. They'd done it. 32 children, 2 adults, all alive. Caleb collapsed on the riverbank, his chest heaving, his body shaking from cold and exhaustion. Someone draped a blanket around his shoulders. Someone else was checking him for injuries, but his eyes were on the 2 dark-haired girls being bundled into an ambulance, their small faces pale but alert. "You saved them." The voice was cultured, precise, nothing like the rural drawl of Cedar Valley. Caleb looked up to see a woman in a business suit that probably cost more than his truck. She was beautiful in that polished way that suggested professional stylists and personal trainers, but her face was streaked with tears, her composure cracked. "Those are my daughters. You saved my daughters. Anyone would have—" "No." Her voice was fierce. "Not anyone. You went back. Even when the bus was failing, you went back." She pulled out a checkbook from her purse. "Please, let me—" "Ma'am, I don't want your money." She stared at him as if he'd spoken in a foreign language. "Then what do you want?" "For your girls to be okay." "That's payment enough." Before she could respond, the paramedics called her to the ambulance. She squeezed Caleb's hand once, her manicured nails digging into his palm with desperate gratitude, then ran to her daughters. "You know who that was?" Jake Patterson said, sitting down beside Caleb. Both men were soaked, freezing, and exhausted. "A mother." "That's Vivian Stone, the Vivian Stone. Her company owns half the mineral rights in Wyoming. Hell, she probably owns the land we're sitting on right now." Caleb watched the ambulance pull away, its lights flashing. He didn't care if she owned the whole state. Right now, she was just a mother who'd almost lost her children, and he was just a father who understood that terror all too well. The next hours blurred together. The hospital, where all 32 children were checked and miraculously found to have nothing worse than mild hypothermia and bruises. The parents, crying and hugging anyone who'd helped. The reporters who descended like locusts, shoving microphones and cameras in faces, still shocked from the near tragedy. Caleb slipped away from it all, finding Emma in the high school parking lot where the older kids had been gathered to wait for their parents. "Dad!" She flew into his arms, not caring that he was still damp and smelled like river water. "They said you saved people. They said you were a hero. Just did what needed doing." He held her tighter than usual, remembering those twin girls and how easily it could have been Emma on that bus. "Let's go home." But home felt different that night. As Caleb tucked Emma into bed, something he hadn't done in 2 years, but she didn't protest, he couldn't shake the image of those green eyes, wide with terror, then relief. Lily and Rose. Such delicate names for girls who'd shown such courage. "Dad?" Emma's voice was small in the darkness. "Were you scared?" "Terrified." "But you did it anyway." "That's what courage is, sweetheart. Being scared and doing it anyway." "Mom would have been proud." Caleb's throat tightened. "Yeah, she would have." He sat with Emma until her breathing deepened into sleep, then walked out onto the porch. The night was clear, stars scattered across the Wyoming sky like spilled diamonds. Somewhere in Jackson, or maybe Cheyenne, Vivian Stone was probably tucking her daughters into beds that cost more than most people's cars, in a house he couldn't even imagine. He thought about her offer of money, how instinctively he'd refused it. Pride, maybe. Or maybe just the knowledge that some things couldn't be bought or sold. The life of a child. The gratitude in a mother's eyes. The feeling of doing something that mattered, truly mattered, for the first time since Margaret died. The next morning came too soon, and with it, the reality of his regular life. The pregnant mare had foaled during the night without complications. The cows needed milking. The fence still needed fixing. The world hadn't stopped turning just because 32 children had almost died. But something had changed. As Caleb went about his morning routine, he noticed things he'd overlooked. Martha Henderson's grandson had left a new salt lick by the gate. No note, no request for payment. Someone had patched the worst hole in the barn roof overnight. There was a casserole on his porch steps, still warm, with a note that just said "thank you" in handwriting he didn't recognize. Cedar Valley was taking care of its own, the way small towns did when one of theirs had done something extraordinary. Caleb appreciated it, but it also made him uncomfortable. He'd never been good at accepting help, even when Margaret was sick and they desperately needed it. Emma was at school, and Caleb was elbow-deep in engine grease trying to coax the tractor back to life when an expensive car pulled up his drive. Not just expensive, the kind of car that looked like it had been beamed down from another planet, all smooth lines and silent power. Vivian Stone stepped out, and she looked nothing like the desperate mother from yesterday. This was the Billionaire version, designer everything, sunglasses that probably cost more than his monthly mortgage. An aura of power that made the very air around her seem rarefied. Mr. Ward. Miss Stone. How are the girls? For a moment her composure cracked, and he saw the mother again. They're good. Scared, but good. They wanted me to give you this. She handed him a piece of paper, a child's drawing of a stick figure pulling two smaller stick figures from a blue scribble that must have been water. At the bottom, in careful crayon letters, "Thank you, Mr. Caleb. Love, Lily and Rose." That's... Caleb had to clear his throat. Tell them they're very welcome. I did some research on you last night, Vivian said, and Caleb stiffened. Of course she had. Lost your wife 3 years ago, raising a daughter alone, running this ranch while working part-time at the Patterson's hardware store. You're drowning, Mr. Ward, just not in water. We're doing fine. Your mortgage is 3 months behind. Your daughter's wearing shoes that are 2 sizes too small because you can't afford new ones. Your truck is held together with duct tape and prayer. She pulled out an envelope. This isn't charity. It's justice. You saved my children. Let me save yours. Caleb looked at the envelope but didn't take it. With all due respect, Ms. Stone, you don't know anything about us. Emma's shoes are small because she's sentimental. They were the last ones her mother bought her. She has new ones. She chooses not to wear them. The truck runs fine. The duct tape is from when Emma decided to practice her batting swing too close to the parking area. And the mortgage... He paused. The mortgage is my business. Vivian studied him with eyes that had probably stared down CEOs and senators. You're proud. I'm practical. Your money comes with strings, even if you don't mean it to. People would talk. They'd say I did it for the reward. That would change what happened yesterday into something transactional, and I won't have that. Not for Emma, not for your girls, not for this town. You're also stubborn. That's been mentioned. She put the envelope back in her purse, but she was smiling now, just slightly. What if I could help in a way that didn't involve money? Such as? I own several businesses that need suppliers. Dairy, for instance. Stone Industries runs 7 high-end restaurants in Wyoming and Colorado. They need quality, locally sourced products. I could arrange a contract, fair market value, nothing more. You'd be earning it, not taking it. Caleb wiped his greasy hands on a rag, buying time to think. Why do you care so much? Because for 3 minutes yesterday, my entire world was trapped in a sinking bus. You gave me my world back. The least I can do is try to improve yours. I'll think about it. You'll refuse it, you mean? She moved toward her car, then paused. You know, I've negotiated with some of the most powerful people in the world. None of them were as difficult as you. Maybe that's because they wanted something from you. And you don't? I got what I wanted yesterday. 32 kids going home to their families. She removed her sunglasses, and for the first time he saw her as she really was. Not the billionaire, not the desperate mother, but a woman caught between 2 worlds, trying to make sense of a debt that couldn't be calculated in dollars. The girls want to meet you properly. when they're feeling better. Would you and Emma consider having dinner with us? No business? No money? Just dinner. I'll ask Emma. Vivian nodded and got in her car. As she drove away, Caleb noticed she'd left something on his porch. Not money, but a basket of groceries, practical things like bread and milk and fresh vegetables. The kind of gift that could have come from any neighbor. Smart woman. The days that followed brought a strange kind of celebrity to Cedar Valley. News vans appeared and disappeared. Reporters called at all hours until Caleb stopped answering his phone. The story of the Millers Creek rescue made national news, with blurry phone footage of men diving into churning water, pulling children free. Caleb refused all interviews. He had work to do, a daughter to raise, a life to live that had nothing to do with 15 minutes of fame. But the story wouldn't die, especially once people realized one of the rescued children was Vivian Stone's daughter, the Vivian Stone, tech billionaire, corporate raider, the woman Forbes had called the Velvet Hammer for her ability to destroy companies with a smile. Emma, meanwhile, was dealing with her own version of fame at school. Everyone keeps asking about you, she told Caleb over dinner. Spaghetti again, because it was one of 3 things they could both cook without burning. Wanting to know what it was like, if you were scared, if you really refused a reward from Vivian Stone. What do you tell them? The truth. That you're just my dad, and you did what you always do, the right thing. Smart girl. So, Emma twirled her spaghetti, not meeting his eyes. Are we going to have dinner with them? With Miss Stone and her daughters? Do you want to? I looked her up. She's like super rich, like owns a private jet rich. That doesn't answer my question. Emma was quiet for a moment. I think Mom would want us to. She always said we should be open to new experiences, meet new people. Plus those girls, they're just little kids who went through something awful. Maybe seeing you again, in a normal setting, would help them. Sometimes Caleb forgot how wise his 14-year-old could be. All right, I'll call her. The dinner was set for Friday night at a restaurant in Jackson that Caleb had only ever driven past. The kind of place with valet parking and no prices on the menu. He'd had to borrow a suit from Jake Patterson, and Emma wore the dress they'd bought for her school concert, the one nice thing in her closet. We look ridiculous, Emma whispered as they walked in, past the marble foyer and the tinkling fountain. We look fine, Caleb lied. He felt like a scarecrow dressed up for Halloween. But then Lily and Rose ran toward them, not in designer dresses, but in jeans and t-shirts with unicorns on them. Looking like any other 6-year-olds, they stopped just short of Caleb, suddenly shy. Hi, Lily said. Hi, Rose echoed. Hi yourselves, Caleb said, crouching down to their level. You both look a lot better than the last time I saw you. You saved us, Rose said solemnly, from the water. We were really scared, Lily added, but you said we'd be okay. And you were. Both girls rushed forward and hugged him, their small arms barely reaching around his neck. Over their heads he saw Vivian watching, and for once she wasn't the billionaire or the desperate mother. She was just grateful. Dinner was less awkward than Caleb had feared. The girls chattered about school, their guinea pig named Mr. Whiskers, their favorite cartoon shows. Emma, usually shy around strangers, opened up when she learned the twins loved horses. My dad's teaching me to train them, Emma said. We have a new foal, born just this week. Can we see it? Both twins asked in unison, turning to their mother with identical pleading expressions. I don't think, Vivian started. You're welcome any time, Caleb interrupted. Both of you, all of you. Vivian looked at him across the table, and something passed between them. Not attraction, not yet, but understanding. They were both single parents doing their best, both protective of their children, both a little lost in their different ways. Thank you, she said simply. The evening ended with the twins falling asleep against Emma on a plush bench, worn out from excitement and too much chocolate dessert. Caleb carried Rose while Vivian carried Lily to her car. This was nice, Vivian said. Normal. They needed normal. Everyone needs normal. Even billionaires? Especially billionaires, from what I can tell. She laughed, and it transformed her face, making her look younger, less burdened. You really won't take any reward, will you? You bought dinner. That's reward enough. That dinner cost $400. Caleb nearly choked. 400 for pasta? Welcome to my world. I think I'll stay in mine, thanks. But as they drove home, Emma asleep in the passenger seat, Caleb couldn't stop thinking about that laugh. The way Vivian had looked watching her daughters play, the weight she carried that had nothing to do with money. The next few weeks brought unexpected changes. True to her word, Vivian had one of her restaurants reach out about a dairy contract. The terms were fair, more than fair actually, and it would mean steady income through the winter months. Caleb signed it, telling himself it was just business. Then came the educational trust. Not for him, but offered openly to all the children who'd been on the bus. College funds managed by an independent firm, available when they turned 18. No strings, no requirements except graduating high school. The town council voted to accept it unanimously, and even Caleb couldn't find fault with it. She's clever, Martha Henderson said, cornering Caleb in the general store. Can't get to you directly, so she goes around. She's helping the town. She's courting you, is what she's doing. Don't be ridiculous. But then came the visits. Not formal things, just Vivian bringing the twins to see the horses. She'd show up in jeans and boots that still looked expensive, but at least practical, watching as Emma taught Lily and Rose to brush the gentler mares. She'd stand beside Caleb at the fence, discussing everything and nothing. The weather, the girls' schools, the challenges of single parenthood. Do you miss it? She asked one afternoon as November painted the mountains white. Having a partner? Every day, Caleb answered honestly. Margaret was. She was my compass. Without her, I'm just trying not to get too lost. I know the feeling. My husband, ex-husband, he left when the twins were 2. Said I loved my work more than him. He wasn't entirely wrong. Do you love your work more? I love what I've built. The power to change things, to make decisions that matter. But lately, she watched her daughters laughing as Emma led them on the old pony, their cheeks red from cold and joy. Lately, I wonder what I'm building it all for. These conversations became regular, then necessary. Caleb found himself looking forward to the sound of her car on the gravel drive, the way she'd learned to let herself in through the gate, how the twins would race toward the barn calling for Emma and the horses. One day she arrived alone and in tears. What's wrong? Caleb found her sitting in her car, her composed face streaked with makeup. There's a hostile takeover, my company. They've been buying shares quietly, and now I might lose everything. Who? Richard Blackstone. We've been rivals for years, but this is personal. He knows the girls are my weakness. He's threatening to drag them through the media, expose their father's drug problems, make their lives hell unless I capitulate. Caleb's hands clenched. That's blackmail. That's business. No, that's bullshit. He opened her car door. Come inside, we'll figure this out. We? Caleb, you don't understand. This is corporate warfare. Billions of dollars. Legal teams. It's not your fight. You're right. I don't understand high finance, but I understand bullies. And I understand that you're sitting in my driveway crying, which makes it my problem. She looked at him, mascara smudged, vulnerability cracking her perfect facade. Why do you care? Because that's what friends do. The word hung between them. Friends. Is that what they were? This billionaire and a rancher, this woman who could buy and sell entire towns, and a man who couldn't afford to fix his barn roof? But she got out of the car and followed him inside, sat at his scratched kitchen table while he made coffee with his 10-year-old machine that wheezed and sputtered but still worked. She told him everything about Blackstone, about the takeover, about how she'd built her empire on intelligence and determination, but now faced losing it to a man who fought dirty. What would Margaret do? Vivian asked suddenly. The question surprised him. What? Your wife. From everything you and Emma have said, she was remarkable. What would she advise? Caleb thought about it, remembering Margaret's practical wisdom, her ability to see through complexity to the simple truth beneath. She'd say that bullies expect you to fight on their terms. So don't. Change the game. How? I don't know business, but I know people. This Blackstone, he's expecting you to respond like a CEO. Corporate moves, legal strategies. What if you responded like a mother instead? I don't understand. Go public. Not with business details, but with the truth. That he's threatening your children to gain a business advantage. Most of your shareholders are people, right? People with families. Let them see what kind of man is trying to take over. Make it personal, because he made it personal first. Vivian stared at him. That's either brilliant or insane. Margaret always said the two were closely related. She laughed, then cried, then laughed again. God, Caleb, how did I end up here? In a kitchen that probably hasn't been updated since the 70s, taking business advice from a rancher who probably doesn't even have a computer. I have a computer. It's from 2015. Still works fine. Of course it does. She wiped her eyes. You keep everything until it completely falls apart, don't you? Nothing wrong with that. No, she said softly. There isn't. She stayed for dinner, just soup and bread, nothing fancy. Emma and the twins appeared as the school bus dropped them off, and suddenly the kitchen was full of voices and laughter. Homework was spread across the table. The twins drew pictures while Emma helped them with basic math. It was chaos and noise, and everything Vivian's life usually wasn't. This is nice, she said quietly to Caleb as they watched the girls. It's just dinner. No, it's family, or what family should be. That night, after Vivian had bundled the sleepy twins into her car and headed back to Jackson, Emma asked, Is she your girlfriend? No, Caleb said quickly. We're just friends. Mom would like her. Emma, I'm not saying you should date her. I'm just saying Mom would like her. She's smart and tough, and she loves her kids, plus she makes you smile. I smile. Not like that. Not since Mom. Caleb didn't know what to say to that, so he said nothing. But that night, he lay awake thinking about Vivian's laugh, the way she'd looked sitting at his kitchen table, how natural it had felt having her there. The next morning brought news. Vivian had taken his advice, giving an interview to the Wall Street Journal that was personal, raw, and devastating to Blackstone's reputation. She spoke as a mother, not a CEO, about the lengths some would go to for money and power. The story went viral within hours. By afternoon, Blackstone's investors were pulling out. By evening, he'd withdrawn the takeover attempt. Vivian called Caleb from her office, triumph and exhaustion in her voice. We did it. You did it. Your crazy plan actually worked. You did it. I just made coffee. Caleb, her voice went soft. I owe you everything. Again. You owe me nothing. Ever. I'm starting to think that's your motto. It's served me well so far. Has it? Really? When's the last time you let someone help you? When's the last time you admitted you needed anything from anyone? The question stung because it was true. Since Margaret's death, he'd built walls around himself and Emma, letting no one in, accepting no help that wasn't absolutely necessary. I should go, he said. Evening chores. Caleb? But he'd already hung up. That night he worked until his body ached, fixing things that didn't need fixing, avoiding thoughts that wouldn't leave him alone. Emma watched him with worried eyes but said nothing. She'd learned when to push and when to let him be. 3 days passed with no word from Vivian. Caleb told himself it was for the best. They were from different worlds, brought together by crisis, but not meant for more. She had her empire to run. He had his ranch to maintain. That was the natural order of things. Then Thursday's mail brought a letter, not from Vivian, but from the bank. The mortgage on the ranch, all remaining payments, had been paid in full. The deed was his, free and clear. Caleb drove to the bank in a fury, demanding answers. The manager, Tim Pearson, looked terrified. I can't reveal who It was Vivian Stone. I can neither confirm nor... Tim, we've known each other for 10 years. Just tell me. Tim sighed. It was anonymous, but yes, the payment came from Stone Industries Charitable Foundation. It's all legal, all above board. You can refuse it, but the payment's already been processed. You'd essentially be donating your ranch to the bank. Caleb drove to Jackson, breaking every speed limit. He'd never been to Vivian's office, but the Stone Industries building was hard to miss. 20 stories of glass and steel that reflected the mountains like a mirror. The receptionist tried to stop him, but Caleb walked past her, taking the elevator to the top floor where he knew she'd be. He found her in a conference room, surrounded by suits and spreadsheets. Caleb? She stood, surprise and something else. Hope? Flickering across her face. What are you doing here? We need to talk. Now. She must have seen something in his expression because she immediately excused herself from the meeting. She led him to her office, a space larger than his entire house, with views that stretched to the Tetons. You paid off my mortgage. After I specifically told you not to give me money. After I made it clear I wouldn't accept charity. It's not charity. It's gratitude. It's manipulation. The word hit her like a slap. That's not... I wasn't trying to manipulate you. I was trying to help. I don't need your help. Yes, you do. The words exploded from her. You're too proud to see it, but you do. You're working yourself into the ground. Emma's watching her father disappear into work and grief, and you won't let anyone in because you've confused isolation with strength. You don't know anything about... I know everything about it. You think you're the only one who's lost someone? Who's had to rebuild? The difference is, I rebuilt with money and power. You're rebuilding with pride and solitude. Neither one works, Caleb. Neither one brings them back. They stood facing each other, both breathing hard, the truth hanging between them like a blade. I was trying to give you freedom, she said quietly. Freedom to make choices based on what you want, not what you need. Freedom to maybe choose us, choose this, without worrying about losing your ranch or providing for Emma's. Us? Don't pretend you haven't felt it. These past weeks, the girls love you and Emma, and I... She turned toward the window. I haven't felt this way since David left. Maybe not even before that. You see me, Caleb. Not the money, not the power. Just me. Messy, imperfect, trying her best me. Vivian, but you're right. I shouldn't have paid the mortgage without telling you. I violated your trust, and I'm sorry. I'll have Tim reverse it if that's what you want. Caleb stood there, watching her reflection in the window. This powerful woman who'd made herself vulnerable for him. Margaret would have liked her. Emma had been right about that. Margaret would have seen through the money to the mother beneath, the woman trying to balance power and parenthood, strength and softness. Keep it, he said. She turned. What? The mortgage payment. Keep it as is. But from now on, we do things together or not at all. No more surprises. No more unilateral decisions. If this, whatever this is going to work, we do it as equals. How can we be equals when I have billions and you have 40 acres? Because money isn't the only currency that matters. You taught me that. Or maybe you reminded me. Margaret knew it. She always said rich or poor, we all end up in the same size box. That's morbid. That's honest. The weeks that followed their confrontation in Vivian's office took on a different rhythm. True to their agreement, every decision was discussed, every step forward taken together. Vivian would arrive at the ranch not as the billionaire benefactor, but as someone learning to navigate this new dynamic. She'd trade her designer heels for borrowed boots, her manicured hands gradually acquiring calluses from helping with chores she'd never imagined doing. You're holding the pitchfork wrong, Emma told her one afternoon, barely suppressing a giggle as Vivian attempted to muck out a stall. There's a right way to hold a pitchfork, Vivian asked, hay stuck in her usually perfect hair. There's a right way to do everything on a ranch, Caleb said from the doorway, trying not to smile at the sight of one of Wyoming's most powerful women covered in horse bedding. But you're getting better. Liar, Vivian muttered, but she was smiling too. The twins had taken to ranch life with an enthusiasm that surprised everyone. Rose showed a natural affinity for the animals, spending hours with the chickens, naming each one and somehow remembering which was which. Lily, bolder and more adventurous, had convinced Emma to teach her barrel racing using the old pony and some makeshift barrels. She's going to be a natural, Emma told Caleb one evening as they watched Lily navigate the course with determination that belied her 6 years. She's got no fear. Like her mother, Caleb observed, watching Vivian cheer from the fence, despite having explicitly told Lily to be careful just minutes before. But it wasn't all smooth progress. The merger of their two worlds came with complications neither had anticipated. The first real test came when Vivian invited Caleb to a charity gala in Cheyenne, a black tie affair that might as well have been on another planet as far as he was concerned. "I don't belong there," he said flatly when she brought it up. "You belong wherever you choose to be." "Vivian, I don't even own a tuxedo. We can rent one. That's not the point. Your world, those people, they'll look at me and see exactly what I am, a rancher playing dress-up." "They'll see what I see," she said firmly. "A good man who saved 32 children and doesn't care about impressing anyone." "Is that what you see?" "Among other things," she said, and there was something in her voice that made his heart skip. Against his better judgment, he agreed to go. Jake Patterson's wife, Sandra, practically forced him into her car to go tuxedo shopping in Jackson, insisting that the whole town had a stake in him not embarrassing himself. "You're representing Cedar Valley now," she said, adjusting his bow tie for the 5th time. "Whether you like it or not, you and Vivian Stone are the talk of 3 counties." "There is no me and Vivian Stone." Sandra gave him a look that suggested he was being deliberately obtuse. "Caleb Ward, that woman drives 2 hours each way 3 times a week to muck out horse stalls. If that's not love, I don't know what is." The gala was everything Caleb had feared and more. The ballroom glittered with chandeliers that probably cost more than most people's houses. Women wore gowns that belonged in museums, men in tuxedos that fit like second skins. And there was Vivian, radiant in midnight blue, looking like she belonged in a fairy tale. "You came," she said, and the relief in her voice caught him off guard. "Said I would." "You look—" She paused, taking him in. "You look handsome." "I look like a scarecrow in a borrowed suit." "Stop it." She took his arm, her touch sending electricity through the rented fabric. "You look like exactly who you are, a man who doesn't need any of this to be impressive." The evening was a blur of introductions, handshakes with people whose names he'd only seen in newspapers. Senator this, CEO that, all of them looking at him with barely concealed curiosity. He was Vivian Stone's rancher, the hero from the bridge, the man who'd refused her money. He could see them trying to figure out the angle, the game, because in their world, there was always a game. "You must be so proud," a woman dripping in diamonds said to him, "landing Vivian Stone." "I haven't landed anyone," Caleb said evenly. "I'm just here as her friend." The woman laughed, a tinkling sound that grated on his nerves. "Oh, how refreshing. He's playing hard to get." "He's not playing anything," Vivian said, appearing at his elbow. "That's what makes him different from every other man in this room." Later, on the balcony overlooking the city lights, Vivian found him escaping the crowd. "I'm sorry," she said. "I shouldn't have brought you here." "This isn't your world." "No," he agreed, "but it's yours. And if we're going to do this, whatever this is, I need to understand it." "Do you want to do this?" The question hung in the air between them. Below, Cheyenne sprawled in a constellation of lights, but Caleb was thinking of star-filled skies over Cedar Valley, of his daughter laughing with the twins, of mornings when Vivian would arrive with coffee from the fancy shop in Jackson and they'd sit on his porch watching the sunrise. "My wife died 3 years ago," he said slowly. "For a long time, I thought that meant my life was over too. Just existing for Emma, for the ranch, for the next day's work. Then you crashed into our lives, literally, with your daughters, and suddenly there was noise again, chaos, life. Is that a yes?" He turned to look at her, this impossible woman who commanded boardrooms but got excited about collecting eggs, who could buy anything but had chosen to learn to make Emma's favorite cookies from scratch. "Margaret would have wanted me to be happy," he said. "Emma wants me to be happy. The question is whether I can want that for myself. And can you?" Before he could answer, a commotion arose from inside. Through the glass doors, they could see people gathering around phones, voices rising in alarm. Vivian's assistant, a young man named Derek, burst onto the balcony. "Ms. Stone, there's been an accident. In Cedar Valley. The mine—" Caleb's blood went cold. The Brackenridge mine employed half the town, including Jake Patterson's son and Mike Chen's brother. "What kind of accident?" "A collapse," Derek said, reading from his phone. "They're saying at least 15 miners are trapped." Caleb was already moving, Vivian right behind him. They drove through the night, Caleb pushing Vivian's car to its limits on the dark Wyoming highways. His phone rang constantly, Emma checking in, neighbors organizing rescue efforts, the volunteer fire department mobilizing. Emma's safe, he told Vivian, who hadn't asked but whose concern was written across her face. She's at the Hendersons with the twins. Martha collected them when the news broke. This is my fault, Vivian said quietly. What? I own shares in Brackenridge. Not controlling interest, but enough that I should have paid attention. There were safety reports, concerns about the eastern shaft. I was too distracted by the Blackstone situation to notice. You can't blame yourself for this. Can I? I have the power to influence these things, and I didn't use it. They arrived at the mine to find organized chaos. Emergency vehicles lined the access road. Families clustered behind barriers, some crying, others praying. The mine entrance yawned like a mouth in the hillside, swallowing the rescue workers who ventured inside. Tom Bradley grabbed Caleb as soon as he saw him. We need everyone who knows these tunnels. You worked here summers during high school, didn't you? 20 years ago, Tom. That's 19 years more recent than most of us. The eastern shaft collapsed just past the third junction. The men are trapped in pocket 4, we think. They've got maybe 6 hours of air, less if anyone's injured. Caleb looked at the mine entrance, remembering those summers when he was 17, 18, saving money for college before Margaret got sick the first time, and plans changed. He knew those tunnels, or at least he had. I'll go, he said. Absolutely not, Vivian said. You're not trained for this. You have a daughter to think about. And Jake Patterson has a son down there. Mike Chen has a brother. These are my people, Vivian. Then they're my people too, she said, and before anyone could stop her, she was pulling on borrowed safety gear. I'm smaller than most of you. If there are tight spaces, I can get through. Ma'am, with all due respect, that's Tom Bradley started. Sheriff, I own 16% of this mine. That makes me legally liable and morally responsible. I'm going. The rescue team that entered the mine consisted of 6 people: Caleb, Vivian, 2 professional mine rescue workers from Gillette, Dave Williams from the fire department, and surprisingly, old Carl Brennan, who'd worked these tunnels for 40 years before retiring. Still remember every turn, Carl said, his headlamp cutting through the darkness, including the ones that aren't supposed to be there. The descent was like entering another world. The temperature dropped, the walls pressed close, and the only sounds were their breathing and the occasional groan of stressed rock. Caleb kept Vivian close, her hand in his whenever the passage allowed. You didn't have to come, he said. Yes, I did. You were right earlier. If we're doing this, we do it together. They reached the collapse after what felt like hours, but was probably only 30 minutes. The passage was completely blocked, tons of rock sealing off the tunnel beyond. But Carl led them through a maintenance shaft barely 3 feet wide that connected to an older part of the mine. Abandoned in the 80s, he explained, but it links up with Pocket 4 if it hasn't collapsed. The maintenance shaft was a nightmare. They had to crawl on their bellies, the rock pressing down until Caleb could barely breathe. Behind him, he could hear Vivian's controlled breathing, the only sign of her fear. The professional rescuers had stayed at the main collapse, working to clear it, leaving the 4 of them to try this desperate alternative. I can see light, Dave called from ahead. Headlamps. We found them. The pocket was larger than expected, and 15 men were huddled inside, some injured, all running low on oxygen. Jake's son Tommy had a broken leg. Mike's brother Lynn was unconscious, a gash on his head that looked serious. About time you showed up, Tommy managed to joke through his pain. We were starting to think we'd have to dig ourselves out. The next hours were a blur of careful evacuation. They had to move the injured through the maintenance shaft, a torturous process that required all their strength and more courage than Caleb thought he possessed. Vivian proved invaluable, her smaller size allowing her to navigate the tightest spaces, her voice calm and reassuring as she guided the terrified men through. You're doing great, she told Lynn's partner, a young man named Bobby, who was on the verge of panic. Just follow my voice. Caleb's right behind you. One by one, they got them out. By the time the last man emerged into the pre-dawn light, the entire town had gathered. The cheers were deafening. Families rushed forward, tears and embraces everywhere. Caleb saw Emma pushing through the crowd, the twins with her, all three girls launching themselves at their parents. "You're both crazy," Emma said, hugging them simultaneously. "Completely insane." "We're all safe," Caleb said, holding her tight. "Together," Vivian added, her arms around all three girls. "We're safe together." In the aftermath, as the rescued miners were taken to hospitals and the crowd began to disperse, Caleb found himself sitting on the tailgate of his truck with Vivian, both of them covered in mine dust, exhausted beyond measure. "You were incredible down there," he said. "I was terrified." "But you did it anyway." "Someone once told me that's what courage is," she said, leaning against his shoulder. The sun was rising over the mountains, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. The mine entrance was being sealed, pending investigation. There would be lawsuits, inquiries, changes to be made, but right now, in this moment, everyone was alive. "I know my answer," Caleb said suddenly. "To what?" "Your question, at the gala, about whether I can want to be happy." He turned to face her, this remarkable woman who'd entered his life in crisis and somehow made it whole again. "Yes, I can. I do. With you, if you'll have us. Me and Emma, with all our complications and baggage and small-town ways. Only if you'll have us," Vivian said, tears cutting through the mine dust on her cheeks. "Me and the twins, with all our money and power, and the circus that comes with it." "Deal," he said, and kissed her as the town of Cedar Valley woke to a new day. But their story was far from over. The mine collapse investigation revealed serious safety violations, and Vivian threw herself into the fight for accountability. She used her 16% ownership to force changes, bringing in independent inspectors and establishing a victims fund that she personally guaranteed. "This is going to make you enemies," her lawyer warned her, "powerful ones. The other owners won't forgive you for this." "Then they'll have to get in line," Vivian said. "I've got plenty of enemies already." The retaliation came swiftly. Suddenly, Vivian's other business interests were under scrutiny. Permits were delayed, contracts questioned. Someone leaked photos of her at Caleb's ranch, spinning a story about the billionaire playing farmer while neglecting her corporate responsibilities. "Maybe we should cool things off," Caleb suggested one evening after a particularly vicious article in the Financial Times. "Until this blows over." "Is that what you want?" "I want you and the girls safe. I want Emma protected from this ugliness. And I want us to stop letting other people dictate our lives," Vivian said fiercely. "We've both done that for too long. You, hiding behind your grief. Me, hiding behind my success. No more." The turning point came from an unexpected source. Richard Blackstone, the corporate raider who'd tried to take over Vivian's company, reached out with a proposal. "I know we're not friends," he said over a video call that included both Vivian and Caleb. "But we have a common enemy now. The Brackenridge board wants you out, Vivian. They're planning a coordinated attack on your holdings. But if we work together." "Why would you help me?" Vivian asked suspiciously. "Because I respect what you did at the mine. And because I'd rather compete with someone who has integrity than deal with the jackals trying to take you down." It was an unlikely alliance, but it worked. Together they exposed the safety violations at other mines owned by the same group, turning public opinion decisively in Vivian's favor. The victory was bittersweet. It didn't bring back the months of fear for the trapped miners or heal all the injuries, but it meant change, real change, for mining safety across Wyoming. Through it all, the relationship between Caleb and Vivian deepened. She bought a small house in Cedar Valley, nothing fancy, just a place where she and the twins could stay without the 2-hour drive. It was 3 blocks from Caleb's ranch, close enough for convenience but far enough to maintain some independence. "We're taking things slow," Vivian told Martha Henderson, who'd appointed herself the town's official relationship coordinator. "Honey, you're 43 and he's 35. Neither of you has time for slow." But slow worked for them. Family dinners became a regular thing. The girls grew closer, Emma becoming the big sister the twins had never had. Caleb taught Vivian to ride properly, while she taught him the basics of reading financial statements. "I never thought I'd understand any of this," he admitted one night, looking over her company's quarterly report. "And I never thought I'd know how to deliver a foal," she replied. "But here we are." The foal in question had arrived 2 weeks earlier, with Vivian assisting as Caleb guided the mare through a difficult birth. She'd cried when the baby horse finally stood on shaky legs, overwhelmed by the miracle of it. "In my world, we create things on paper," she'd said. "Companies, mergers, financial instruments. But this is real creation." Christmas approached with unusual warmth for Wyoming, the snow holding off until mid-December. They decided to celebrate together, all 5 of them, at Caleb's ranch. The house had never been so full of life. A tree that touched the ceiling dominated the living room, decorated with a chaotic mix of Emma's childhood ornaments and new ones the twins had made at school. "It's perfect," Rose declared, adding her 15th paper angel to an already crowded branch. "It's leaning," Lily observed critically. "Everything good leans a little," Caleb said, adjusting the tree stand for the 3rd time. On Christmas Eve, after the girls had gone to bed, Emma reading to the twins until all 3 fell asleep in a pile on her bed, Caleb and Vivian sat by the fire, watching snow finally begin to fall outside. "I have something for you," she said, pulling out a small wrapped box. "We agreed no expensive gifts." "Open it." Inside was a key. Nothing fancy, just a simple brass key on a leather cord. "It's to my house here," she explained. "I know we're taking things slow, but I wanted you to know you're always welcome. You and Emma. This isn't just about me anymore, or just about you. It's about all of us. The family we're building." Caleb pulled out his own gift, suddenly self-conscious. It was a ring, not an engagement ring, but a simple band of silver with a small piece of turquoise embedded in it. "It was Margaret's grandmother's," he said. "Margaret always said it should go to someone who understood that love wasn't about grand gestures, but daily choices. Choosing to show up. Choosing to stay. Choosing to build something together even when it's hard." Vivian slipped it onto her right hand, tears in her eyes. "It's perfect. You're perfect. I'm really not." "No," he agreed, "but you're perfect for us." The new year brought new challenges. Vivian's ex-husband David resurfaced, claiming he wanted to be part of the twins' lives again. He showed up in Cedar Valley with a lawyer and a court order for visitation rights. "I've been clean for 2 years," he told Vivian in the courthouse hallway. "I have a right to see my daughters." "You had a right when you walked out on them," Vivian said coldly. "You lost it when you chose drugs over your family." The legal battle was ugly. David's lawyer painted Vivian as a workaholic who'd driven him away, now exposing their daughters to an unsuitable environment in rural Wyoming. They brought up Caleb's financial struggles, Emma's mother's death, even the mine rescue, spinning it as reckless endangerment. "This is my fault," Vivian told Caleb after a particularly brutal day in court. "I should never have let you get involved in this." "Hey," he said, taking her face in his hands. "We're partners. Your battles are my battles. We fight together or not at all." The turning point came when the judge asked to speak with the twins privately. At 6, they were young, but Judge Harrison was known for listening to children. Lily and Rose were in chambers for an hour while everyone waited anxiously outside. When they emerged, Lily marched straight to Caleb and took his hand. Rose did the same with Emma. The message was clear. "The court recognizes the biological father's rights," Judge Harrison said when court reconvened. "However, the children's welfare must come first. Mr. Reeves will be granted supervised visitation, 1 afternoon per month, to be reevaluated in 6 months. The children will continue to reside primarily with their mother." David's face darkened, but he nodded. As they left the courthouse, he approached Vivian. "I know you hate me," he said, "and you have every right to. But I'm trying to be better. For them." "Then be better," Vivian said. "Don't just try. Do it." The supervised visits were awkward at first, but gradually David proved himself capable of short-term sobriety and genuine interest in his daughters. Caleb stayed out of it, respecting the complicated history, but he was there when the twins came home confused or upset, offering the steady presence they needed. Spring arrived with unusual violence, bringing storms that flooded rivers and washed out roads. The community rallied as it always did, neighbors helping neighbors, but the worst was yet to come. The call came at 3 in the morning. The dam above Cedar Valley, old and poorly maintained, was showing signs of failure. If it broke, the entire valley would flood within hours. Mandatory evacuation, Tom Bradley's voice crackled over the emergency radio. Everyone out, now. But evacuation took time, and not everyone could move quickly. The nursing home, the hospital's long-term care ward, families with disabled members, they needed help. Caleb and Vivian split up to cover more ground. She coordinated with her company's helicopters to airlift the most vulnerable, while he led the ground evacuation, using every truck and trailer in the valley to move people to higher ground. "The dam's not going to hold," the engineer's voice came over the radio. "Maybe an hour, maybe less." They were still evacuating when the sound came, a roar like nothing Caleb had ever heard. The dam hadn't just failed, it had exploded outward, sending a wall of water 20 feet high racing towards Cedar Valley. "Everyone to high ground, now!" Caleb shouted. He was helping old Mr. Garrison into his truck when he saw them, a family trapped in their car, wheels spinning uselessly in mud as water rushed toward them. Without thinking, he ran toward them, Vivian's voice screaming his name behind him. The water hit just as he reached the car. The force of it slammed him against the vehicle, but he managed to break the window and pull the children out. 3 of them, all under 10. Their parents followed, everyone linked together as the water tried to tear them apart. They said later it was impossible what happened next, that no one could have held on against that current. But Caleb did, anchored somehow against an old fence post, holding that family until Jake Patterson's tractor reached them with a rope, pulling them all to safety just as the fence post gave way. "You could have died," Vivian said later at the emergency shelter, her voice shaking as she bandaged his scraped hands. "You almost did die, but I didn't. You can't keep doing this, running into danger without thinking," says the woman who crawled through a mine shaft. "That was different." "How?" "Because I can't lose you," she said, the words torn from her. "The girls can't lose you. Emma can't. I can't. We just can't." The flood destroyed much of Cedar Valley. Homes were gone, businesses washed away. The elementary school where 32 children had almost died in a bus was now underwater. But no one died in the flood itself, a miracle attributed to the early warning and the community's response. In the aftermath, Vivian did what she did best. She organized. Her company's resources poured into Cedar Valley. Not charity, she insisted, but investment. Rebuilding not just what was lost, but better, stronger, prepared for the next 100-year flood that climate change suggested might come much sooner. "You're going to rebuild the whole town?" Caleb asked, looking at the plans she'd spread across his kitchen table. His house, on higher ground, had survived. "We're going to rebuild it. The community. Together. But with proper funding and planning this time." It took months. Vivian moved her operations temporarily to Cedar Valley, running her empire from a trailer that served as both office and command center for the rebuild. The girls attended the temporary school set up in the high school gymnasium. Life found a new rhythm, different but not worse. "I never expected this," David said during one of his visits, watching his daughters help distribute supplies to flood victims. "Them, here, like this. You've given them something I never could." "A small town?" Vivian asked. "A family," he said. "A real one. With that man of yours. His daughter. This community. It's what I should have given them, but couldn't." "You can still be part of it," Vivian said, surprising herself. "If you stay clean. If you really try." David looked at her, this woman he'd once loved and failed so spectacularly. "Maybe. Someday. But right now, they have what they need, and that's enough." The conversation Caleb had been dreading came in late summer. Vivian found him in the barn, a formal letter in her hand. "The board wants me back in New York," she said. "Full-time. They say I can't run a multinational corporation from a flood-damaged town in Wyoming." And they're probably right. The company needs leadership, real presence. I've been trying to do both, but you can't. He focused on the bridle he was repairing, not trusting himself to look at her. "So when do you leave?" "That's the thing. I don't want to leave, but I can't abandon what I've built either. It employs thousands of people. It matters." "Then you go." Just like that? Now he did look at her. "Vivian, I knew who you were when this started. I'm not going to ask you to choose between us and your life's work. What if I didn't have to? She spread out more papers, architectural plans, business proposals, financial projections. I've been thinking, what if we moved the headquarters? Not all of it, that's impossible, but the Western Division. Bring it to Wyoming, to Cedar Valley specifically. As part of the rebuild, we create a tech corridor, bring in jobs, young families, fresh energy, but keep the community feel. Keep what makes this place special. That's insane. That's what you said about my plan to fight Blackstone. This is bigger. This is changing everything. Everything's already changed, Caleb. The flood made sure of that. The question is whether we shape that change or let it shape us. The town meeting about Vivian's proposal packed the high school gymnasium beyond capacity. Farmers stood beside their wives, merchants clutched coffee cups with nervous hands, and children fidgeted on metal folding chairs that squeaked with every movement. Caleb stood at the back, watching Vivian present her vision with the same intensity she'd once reserved for corporate boardrooms. "This isn't about changing Cedar Valley," she said, her voice carrying to every corner. "It's about saving it, while keeping its soul intact. The flood took our buildings, but it didn't take our community. This plan ensures we never lose either again." Old Carl Brennan was the first to stand. "With all due respect, Ms. Stone, we've been doing fine without corporate interference for 100 years. "Have you?" Vivian challenged gently. "The mine that nearly killed 15 men? The dam that nobody maintained? The young people leaving because there are no opportunities here? That's not fine, Mr. Brennan. That's slow death." Martha Henderson stood next. "What about our children? You bring in all these city folks with their city ways. What happens to the values we've raised them with?" Emma surprised everyone by standing up. At 15, she rarely spoke at town meetings, but her voice was clear and strong. "Those values you're talking about? They include welcoming strangers, helping neighbors, and adapting to change. My mom used to say that a tree that can't bend with the wind will break. Cedar Valley needs to bend, or will break." The room fell silent. Caleb felt his chest tighten with pride and sorrow. Emma sounded so much like Margaret in that moment. "The girl's got a point," Jake Patterson said. "My boy Tommy, the one who got trapped in the mine. He's got a degree in engineering, but he's working construction because there's nothing here for him. How many of our kids are in the same boat?" The debate raged for 3 hours. Voices rose and fell like tide waters, anger mixing with hope, fear wrestling with possibility. When the vote finally came, it was closer than anyone expected. 147 for, 134 against. Cedar Valley would change. That night, Caleb found Vivian sitting alone on the temporary bleachers overlooking what used to be Main Street, now a construction zone of possibility. "You did it," he said, sitting beside her. "We did it. Your daughter tipped the scales. She's something else. She gets it from her father." Vivian leaned against him, exhausted. "Some people hate me now. Did you see Mrs. Crawford's face? Mrs. Crawford hates change, not you. She'll come around when she sees it working, and if it doesn't work, then we'll have tried. That's all anyone can do." The construction began immediately. Vivian's company moved with corporate efficiency, but she insisted on hiring locally wherever possible. Jake Patterson's construction company got the contract for the new community center. Mike Chen's restaurant was first to rebuild, with a loan guaranteed by Stone Industries. Even Mrs. Crawford's skepticism softened when her grandson got hired as a project coordinator. But success brought its own complications. The first wave of new residents arrived in September. Young professionals from Denver and San Francisco, drawn by generous relocation packages and the promise of small-town life with big city amenities. They drove Teslas and ordered oat milk lattes at the new coffee shop that opened where Henderson's General Store used to be. "It's not the same," Martha said to Caleb one morning, watching a young couple in matching athletic wear jog past with their designer dog. "Different doesn't mean worse. Doesn't mean better either." The tension came to a head at the Harvest Festival. It had been a Cedar Valley tradition for 70 years, pie contests, square dancing, a parade of tractors down Main Street. This year, the new residents wanted to add a craft beer garden and a folk music festival. "Folk music, Carl Brennan spluttered at the planning meeting. "We've got both kinds of music here, country and western." "Why not have both?" Lily suggested. She and Rose had taken to attending town meetings with their mother, absorbing civic engagement like sponges. Old stuff and new stuff together? From the mouths of babes, Vivian murmured, but loud enough for everyone to hear. The Compromise Festival was awkward at first. The craft beer garden sat half empty while the traditional beer tent overflowed. The folk musicians played to scattered applause while the local country band had people line dancing in the streets. But then something magical happened. Emma and her friends, the bridge generation between old and new, started moving between both venues, dragging their parents along. By nightfall, Carl Brennan was teaching a software developer from Seattle how to two-step, while Mrs. Crawford was grudgingly admitting that the artisanal cheese wasn't half bad. "Look at that," Vivian said to Caleb as they watched the two communities slowly blend. "It's working." "It's starting to," he corrected. "Real change takes time." That time was tested when Richard Blackstone arrived unexpectedly in November. He stood in Caleb's doorway like a corporate ghost, his $1,000 shoes incongruous with the muddy ranch yard. "Mr. Ward, we need to talk about Vivian. She's at the office. I know where she is. I came to see you." Blackstone looked around, taking in the modest house, the worn furniture, the pictures of Margaret still on the mantel. "You love her." It wasn't a question, but Caleb answered anyway. "Yes." "Then you need to know what's coming. The board is planning a coup. They've been buying shares quietly, building a coalition. They think she's lost her mind, pouring resources into this town, trying to run a global company from rural Wyoming. They're going to force her out." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because she won't listen to me. We may be business allies now, but there's too much history. But she trusts you. She needs to strike first, or she'll lose everything she's built. Everything except what matters." Blackstone's smile was sharp, spoken like someone who's never had everything to lose. "She built that company from nothing, Mr. Ward. It's not just money. It's her identity, her legacy, her power to make change. Without it, she's just another rich divorced mother in a small town." "You don't know her at all." "I know her better than you think. I know she's brilliant and ruthless when she needs to be. I know she's been softened by this place, by you, by those girls. And I know that in business, soft means dead." After Blackstone left, Caleb drove to the temporary office complex where Vivian worked. He found her in conference with a dozen screens showing different international markets, her face illuminated by blue light and stress. "Blackstone came to see me," he said without preamble. Her fingers stilled on the keyboard. "What did he want?" "To warn us. The board is moving against you." "I know." She turned to face him, and he saw exhaustion written in every line of her face. "I've known for weeks. The question is what to do about it." "Fight back." "Isn't that what you do? Is it what you want me to do?" "Because fighting back means leaving, Caleb. It means going to New York, to London, to Tokyo. It means boardroom battles and hostile takeovers and all the things I was trying to leave behind. But not forever." "How do you know?" "These things escalate. One battle leads to another. I could be gone for months, maybe years, fighting to keep control." She stood, pacing to the window that overlooked the construction site. "Or I could let it go. Cash out my shares, take the golden parachute. We'd have more money than we could spend in 10 lifetimes." "But it wouldn't be yours anymore?" "No. And all the people who depend on me, on my vision for the company, they'd be vulnerable." She pressed her forehead against the glass. 20,000 employees, Caleb. That's how many people I'm responsible for." "Then you fight." She turned to look at him, surprise evident. "Even if it means losing what we have here, we'll still be here when you get back. That's what you do when you love someone. You support their battles, even when it takes them away. Margaret was lucky to have you. I'm the lucky one. Twice now." The next morning, Vivian was gone. She left a note for the girls, a longer letter for Caleb, and flew to New York on the company jet. The battle for control of Stone Industries had begun. The weeks that followed tested everyone. Caleb managed both the ranch and Vivian's household, getting the twins to school, helping with homework, maintaining the routines that kept life stable. Emma stepped up remarkably, becoming a second mother to Lily and Rose, who missed their mom terribly but understood why she had to go. She's fighting bad guys, Rose explained seriously to her first-grade teacher. Corporate bad guys, which are worse than regular bad guys because they wear suits. Vivian called every night, her face appearing on the tablet screen, looking increasingly tired but determined. She'd explained the day's battles in terms the girls could understand, a game of chess where she had to protect her pieces while capturing the opponent's king. "Are you winning?" Lily always asked. "I'm surviving," Vivian would answer. Sometimes that's the same thing. The town rallied around Caleb and the girls. Martha Henderson brought casseroles. Jake Patterson helped with ranch work. Even Mrs. Crawford, the eternal skeptic, offered to babysit when needed. Cedar Valley had adopted them all, making them family in the way only small towns could. David arrived for his December visit to find his daughters in the middle of a Christmas cookie production line, flour everywhere, carols playing, Emma conducting the chaos with patient humor. "Where's Vivian?" he asked Caleb. "Fighting for her company." David watched his daughters, happy despite their mother's absence, integrated into this patchwork family. "You're good for them, for all of them." "They're good for us too." "I'm moving to Cheyenne," David said suddenly. "Got a job at a treatment center, counseling others in recovery. I want to be closer, but not intrusive." "That's good, David." "Really? I owe you an apology for what my lawyer said in court about you and your daughter. It was cruel and wrong. You were fighting for your kids." "I understand that." "You really do, don't you?" David extended his hand. "Take care of them. All of them." The call came on December 20th, just as snow began falling heavily enough to close roads. Vivian appeared on the screen, and for the first time in weeks, she was smiling. "I won," she said simply. "It's over. I'm coming home." The storm that had closed the roads cleared by morning, leaving Cedar Valley blanketed in pristine white. The girls bounced with excitement, making welcome home signs and arguing about whether to make chocolate cake or vanilla for their mother's return. "Both," Emma decided. "We'll make both." They were decorating the second cake when they heard the car, but it wasn't Vivian's usual vehicle. It was a rental, modest and practical. She emerged looking different, her corporate armor replaced with jeans and a sweater Caleb recognized as one of his that she'd claimed months ago. The twins launched themselves at her, both talking at once about everything she'd missed. Emma hung back, suddenly shy, until Vivian pulled her into the embrace too. "My 3 girls," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "4," Caleb corrected, joining them. "You're one of the girls too." "The oldest one," Lily said seriously. "Thanks, sweetheart." That night, after the girls were asleep and the welcome home dinner dishes were done, Vivian and Caleb sat by the fire she'd insisted on building despite his protest that she must be exhausted. "Tell me," he said. So she did. The 17-hour days, the strategic maneuvering, the moment she'd realized that 2 board members were embezzling and used that leverage to break their coalition. The final vote that confirmed her control, but also her decision to restructure, to step back from day-to-day operations. "I promoted Derek. He's CEO now. I'm keeping majority ownership and a board position, but I'm done with the constant battles." "Can you do that? Step back?" "I thought I couldn't. Thought the company was my identity, but then I'd call home and see you all together, and I realized I was wrong. The company is what I built. This, us, the girls, this town, this is who I am." The board must have loved that. The stock price jumped 12% when I announced Derek's promotion. Turns out the market likes stability more than star power. "And you're okay with that?" "I'm more than okay." She pulled out a small wrapped box. "I missed Christmas shopping, so this is all I could manage." Inside was a key, similar to the one she'd given him a year ago, but this one was older, more worn. "It's to the Stone family cabin," she explained. "My grandfather built it in 1953, up near Yellowstone. It's where I went to think when I was young, before I became whoever I became. I want to share it with you, with all of you. Vivian, I know we're still taking things slow. I know you're still grieving Margaret in ways, and maybe you always will be. But I also know that when I was fighting for my company, the only thing that kept me going was knowing I could come back to you, to this. Caleb set the key aside and took her hands. I need to tell you something. While you were gone, I did a lot of thinking about Margaret, about you, about second chances. He took a breath. Margaret made me promise something before she died. She made me promise to fall in love again, to give Emma a complete family, to not waste my life mourning hers. Caleb, I've been using slow as an excuse, afraid that loving you somehow betrayed her memory. But that's not what she wanted, and it's not what I want anymore. He stood, pulling her to her feet. Vivian Stone, you brilliant, complicated, wonderful woman. You saved this town. You saved my family. You saved me. I love you completely. No more holding back, no more slow. I love you. She was crying now, mascara running. She still wore it despite ranch life, but smiling through the tears. I love you too. God, I love you so much it scared me. That's why I could leave for the fight. Because I knew if I lost everything else but still had you, I'd have won. They kissed then. Not their first kiss, but their first without reservation, without the ghosts of past and future crowding between them. When they broke apart, snow was falling outside, and somewhere in the house, one of the girls giggled. Audience, Caleb murmured. Always, Vivian agreed. 3 faces appeared around the door frame. Emma and the twins in their pajamas, grinning. Finally, Emma said, we've been waiting forever for you two to figure it out. Forever and ever, Rose agreed. Are you getting married? Lily asked with 6-year-old directness. Vivian looked at Caleb, who looked back at her, and something passed between them, a whole conversation in a glance. Someday, Caleb said, when the time is right. Soon, though, Vivian added, because Martha Henderson won't leave us alone until we do. She's already planning the wedding, Emma informed them. She has a whole notebook. Of course she does, Caleb groaned. They all piled onto the couch, the 5 of them, watching snow fall and the fire burn down to embers. It wasn't the family any of them had planned, but it was theirs, forged in crisis and strengthened by choice. Mom would have loved this, Emma said quietly, and for once mentioning Margaret didn't bring sadness but warmth. Yes, Caleb agreed. She would have. The new year brought its own challenges. The integration of old and new Cedar Valley continued with bumps and occasional collisions. The spring brought David closer, his visits now weekly, his sobriety holding firm. He even started dating Sarah from the bank, the same woman Caleb had tried to date years ago, and somehow that felt right, like circles completing. The ranch expanded with Vivian's investment, not charity, but partnership, she insisted. They bought the adjacent land, brought in new breeding stock, turned what had been a survival operation into something thriving. Caleb hired help for the first time, young people from both old and new Cedar Valley, creating jobs and connections. Emma started her senior year with college applications that no longer seemed impossible. The twins entered 2nd grade reading at a 4th grade level, their quick minds challenged by teachers who suddenly had resources they'd never dreamed of. The wedding conversation came up again in March, prompted not by Martha Henderson but by Rose, who announced at dinner that her friend Lucy's parents weren't really married and wanted to know if that meant Caleb wasn't really their dad. I'm not your biological dad, Caleb said carefully, but family isn't just about biology. But you could be our real dad if you married Mom, Lily said logically. I'm already your real dad in every way that matters, Caleb said. A piece of paper doesn't change that. But it would be nice, Emma added, surprising everyone. The paper. The ceremony. The officialness of it all. Vivian and Caleb exchanged looks across the table. Is this a conspiracy? Vivian asked. Yes, all 3 girls answered in unison. The proposal, when it came, wasn't what anyone expected. Caleb had planned something elaborate. Vivian's assistant Derek had even offered to help coordinate something in Paris or New York. But life, as always, had other plans. They were in the barn, dealing with the difficult foaling. The mare had been in labor for hours, the foal was turned wrong, and the vet was stuck in Jackson due to a late spring blizzard. Caleb and Vivian worked together, her small hands able to help turn the foal while he kept the mare calm. Almost, he said. Just a little more. Got it, she gasped, and suddenly the foal was sliding free, alive and perfect. They knelt together in the hay, watching the mare nuzzle her baby, both of them covered in sweat and blood and the mess of birth. "Marry me," Caleb said. Vivian looked at him. This man who'd shown her a different kind of power, a different kind of success. Now? Like this? Especially like this. This is us, Vivian. This is real. Not corporate battles or fancy galas, but this, creating life, saving lives, building something together with our hands and hearts. "You know," she said, "most men would have waited until I wasn't covered in afterbirth. Most men aren't proposing to you." "No," she agreed. "They're not." She kissed him, right there in the barn straw. Yes, of course yes. They married in June, as Cedar Valley bloomed with wildflowers and the rebuilt downtown showed its new face, a blend of old and new that somehow worked. The ceremony was in the meadow behind Caleb's ranch, with the mountains as witness and the entire town in attendance. Emma was Caleb's best woman, standing proud in a dress she'd picked out herself. The twins were flower girls who took their jobs seriously, measuring exact distances between rose petals. David walked Vivian down the aisle, a decision that surprised everyone but felt right, an acknowledgement of past and present. Martha Henderson cried through the entire ceremony. Tom Bradley officiated, having gotten his license online just for the occasion. Jake Patterson's son Tommy, fully recovered from the mine accident, played guitar. The tech workers from San Francisco sat next to ranchers who'd been there for generations, all celebrating love that had brought their worlds together. "Do you, Vivian Stone, take this rancher, this father, this impossibly stubborn man who saves everyone but himself, to be your husband?" "I do," Vivian said, her voice carrying clear across the meadow. "Do you, Caleb Ward, take this CEO, this mother, this force of nature who changed everything just by showing up, to be your wife?" "I do," Caleb said, his eyes never leaving hers. "Then by the power vested in me by the state of Wyoming and this website I found, I pronounce you husband and wife." They kissed as the crowd erupted. The mountains echoed with cheers, and somewhere high above, an eagle circled as if Margaret herself was watching, approving, celebrating the family that had grown from loss into something beautiful. The reception lasted until dawn, with dancing that mixed country two-step with techno beats, barbecue beside sushi, and children running wild through the summer night. Richard Blackstone, who'd flown in from New York, was teaching Mrs. Crawford to tango. Derek was deep in conversation with Carl Brennan about fishing spots. The two Cedar Valleys had become one. "Look at what we built," Vivian said to Caleb as they swayed to a slow song, both too tired and too happy to do more than hold each other. "We didn't build it," he said. "It built itself. We just got out of the way." "Is that your secret? Getting out of the way? That's our secret. Knowing when to fight and when to let things grow." As the sun rose over the Tetons, painting the world gold and pink, the newlyweds stood with their 3 daughters, watching their guests slowly depart. The ranch was littered with the debris of celebration, but no one moved to clean it yet. "What now?" Emma asked. "Now we live happily ever after," Rose said with certainty. "That's just in stories," Lily corrected. "No," Vivian said, pulling all of them closer. "Sometimes it's in real life too. You just have to be brave enough to choose it. And stubborn enough to keep it," Caleb added. They walked back to the house together, the 5 of them, as morning touched Cedar Valley with the promise of all the days to come. Behind them, the meadow held the echo of celebration. Ahead, their home waited, no longer a place of loss but of gathering, no longer just survival but abundance. In the barn, the foal born in the proposal's moment stood on steady legs. In the garden, vegetables planted by many hands pushed through soil. In the town below, old and new woke to another day of becoming something neither had been before, but both could be proud of. "You know what?" Emma said as they reached the porch. "Mom was right." "About what?" Caleb asked. "About second chances. About love finding a way. About family being bigger than blood." She looked at her new stepmother and sisters. "About all of it." "Yes," Caleb agreed, his arm around Vivian, his daughters, all 3 of them, safe and home. She was right about all of it. The screen door closed behind them with a gentle snap, shutting out the world for just a moment, holding them in the warmth of chosen family, earned peace, and love that had conquered more than any of them had thought possible. The first crisis of their married life came just 3 weeks after the wedding. Caleb woke to find Vivian sitting at the kitchen table at 3 a.m, laptop open, face illuminated by spreadsheets that meant nothing good at that hour. "What's wrong?" he asked, though he could guess. Even in stepping back, she couldn't fully let go of her company. "There's been an accident. One of our factories in Malaysia, 12 workers injured, 2 critical." She looked up, and he saw the weight of responsibility crushing her. "The local management tried to cover it up. Derek just found out." "What do you need?" "To be there. To fix this. To—" She closed the laptop with a snap. "To be the person I was before all this. You're still that person. You're just more now, too." "Am I?" "Because that person would already be on a plane. That person wouldn't be thinking about leaving her daughters, about missing Emma's college visits, about abandoning everything we're building here." Caleb sat beside her, taking her hands. "That person also didn't have a partner to share the load. Go, fix this. We'll be here when you get back." "Just like that?" "Just like that. That's what marriage means. Your fights are my fights, remember?" She flew out that morning, but this time was different. She video called from the plane, from the factory, from the hospital where she sat with injured workers. The girls sent her drawings. Emma texted updates about college applications. Caleb sent photos of the ranch at sunset, reminding her what waited at home. She was gone 8 days, returning with changes implemented, compensation arranged, and a new safety protocol that would become the industry standard. But she also returned different, more integrated, having learned to be both CEO and wife, mother and leader, without sacrificing either. "I figured something out," she told Caleb that night. "I don't have to choose between versions of myself. I just have to be all of them in balance." That sounds exhausting. It's liberating. Summer turned to fall with a harvest that exceeded everyone's expectations. The ranch's organic certification came through, opening new markets. The tech corridor Vivian had envisioned materialized with 3 startups choosing Cedar Valley for their headquarters, drawn by quality of life and surprisingly good internet infrastructure. Emma's college acceptances started arriving in October. Yale, Stanford, Princeton. The girl who'd once worried about affording state school now had her pick of the Ivy League. "I can't accept these," she said, staring at the letters spread across the kitchen table. "The tuition alone is covered," Vivian interrupted gently. "Education fund, remember? Same one the twins have. That's for your daughters." "You are my daughter," Vivian said firmly, "in every way that matters, have been since the day you stood up at that town meeting and defended my plan." Emma looked at Caleb, who nodded. "She's right, sweetheart. Family is family." "Then I want to go to Colorado State," Emma said, surprising them both. "They have the best veterinary program in the region, and it's close enough to come home on weekends. This place, this family, I don't want to be across the country from it." "You should choose the best school," Vivian started, then stopped herself. "No, you're right. You should choose the best life. And sometimes that's not about prestige." "Mom would have said the same thing," Emma said, and it was the first time she'd mentioned Margaret to Vivian without awkwardness. The twins were thriving in ways that surprised everyone. Rose had discovered a talent for mathematics that had her teacher recommending advanced programs. Lily, always the bolder one, had started a business selling eggs from the chickens she'd convinced Caleb to let her raise, complete with a business plan that would have impressed Vivian's board. "She's 7, Caleb said, watching Lily negotiate prices with Martha Henderson. "Should 7-year-olds be this capitalistic?" "She's learning value, negotiation, and responsibility," Vivian said. "Besides, look at her face. She's having fun. She just talked Martha up 50 cents a dozen. That's my girl." But not everything was smooth progress. David's increasing presence caused unexpected ripples. He'd been sober 18 months now, steady in his job, reliable with visits. The girls had started to trust him, even love him in the careful way children love parents who've hurt them before. The issue came to a head at the twins' school Christmas pageant. Both parents were there, all 3, really, since Caleb had become as much their father as anyone. When Rose forgot her lines on stage, she looked into the audience and called out, "Daddy, what comes next?" Both Caleb and David started to answer, The moment hung suspended, awkward, and painful, until David stepped back with a small nod. It was Caleb who coached Rose through her line, Caleb she ran to after the show. "That was hard," Vivian said to David afterward. "But right," he replied. "They're his kids now. I'm just grateful to still be part of it. You're their father. That never changes." "No, but what it means does. And right now, it means knowing when to step forward and when to step back." Winter arrived with a vengeance that year, dropping 4 feet of snow in a single December storm. The power went out for 3 days, and the Ward Ranch became a refuge for neighbors whose generators had failed. 17 people crowded into the house, sleeping in shifts, sharing meals cooked on the wood stove, telling stories by candlelight. "This is actually nice," one of the tech workers, a young woman named Priya, said as she helped Emma milk the cows by lantern light. "Like camping, but with purpose." "Everything here has purpose," Emma replied. "That's what makes it home." When the power returned, several of the temporary refugees stayed to help with storm cleanup. Old Cedar Valley and New worked side by side, and somewhere in those 3 days of forced proximity, the last walls came down. They weren't two communities anymore. They were one. Spring brought unexpected news. Richard Blackstone called with an opportunity that would change everything. "There's a company in Denver," he told Vivian over video call, with Caleb listening in. "Agricultural technology. They've developed drought-resistant crops that could revolutionize farming in climate-affected areas. They need investment and guidance. I thought of you." "I'm not really in acquisition mode right now, Richard." "Not acquisition. Partnership. You'd be majority stakeholder, but they'd maintain operations. The interesting part? They want to establish their test facilities somewhere with both traditional farming and tech infrastructure." Vivian and Caleb exchanged glances. "Cedar Valley." "Cedar Valley," Blackstone confirmed. "It would mean jobs, research facilities, and potentially transforming agriculture for the entire region. But it's a massive undertaking. Everything worth doing is," Vivian said. The town meeting about the agricultural facility was different from previous ones. This time, Vivian and Caleb presented together, true partners in every sense. "This isn't about replacing traditional farming," Caleb explained. "It's about giving our farmers tools to survive droughts, floods, the changes we're all seeing. My grandfather farmed this land. My daughter might farm it too. This ensures there's still land to farm. And jobs," Vivian added. "Research positions for our college graduates. Technical roles for those interested in science. Administrative positions. Construction work building the facilities. This could employ 100 people within 2 years." Old Carl Brennan stood. "What about the land? You planning to concrete over good growing soil?" "The facility would be built on the Hendricks property," Caleb said, referring to a farm that had been abandoned after the flood. 60 acres that aren't coming back to production anyway. We'd be reclaiming dead land, not destroying good earth." The vote was unanimous. Even Mrs. Crawford, eternal skeptic, raised her hand in favor. "Don't let it go to your head," she told Vivian afterward. "I still think you wear too much makeup for a rancher's wife." "And I think you make the best pie in Wyoming," Vivian replied. "Want to supply the facility's cafeteria when it opens?" Mrs. Crawford's eyes widened. "That would be a substantial business." "Yes, it would. I'll think about it." But she was smiling when she walked away. Construction began in April, just as Emma was making her final college decision. She chose Colorado State, as she'd said, but with a twist. She'd been accepted into an accelerated program that would combine veterinary science with agricultural technology. "I want to be part of what's happening here," she explained at dinner. "Not just watching, but contributing. This place, what you're all building, it matters." "Your mother would be so proud," Caleb said, his voice thick. "She is proud," Emma corrected gently. "I can feel it." The facility's groundbreaking ceremony brought media attention from around the country. The story was irresistible. Billionaire CEO and local rancher transforming small-town America through partnership rather than gentrification. Reporters loved the visual of Vivian in designer boots standing next to Caleb in worn jeans, both holding golden shovels. "How do you make it work?" one reporter asked. You're different worlds, different lives. Vivian and Caleb looked at each other, a whole conversation in a glance. We don't have different worlds, Caleb said. We have one world built from both of ours. The secret, Vivian added, is remembering that love isn't about finding someone who fits your life. It's about building a life that fits both of you. As summer peaked, the ranch faced its own transformation. The expanded operation needed more hands, and Caleb found himself in the unexpected position of being a significant employer. He hired a mix of old-timers and newcomers, including Priya, the tech worker who'd helped during the winter storm and discovered she loved farm work more than coding. My parents think I've lost my mind, she said, learning to drive the tractor, giving up a six-figure salary to shovel manure. Have you? Caleb asked. Maybe, but I sleep better now. And I wake up happy. That's worth more than money. Vivian would disagree, he joked. No, Vivian said, appearing with lunch for the workers. Vivian would say money gives you options, but happiness gives you reasons to use them. The twins started third grade that fall with a confidence that amazed their teachers. They'd grown into distinct personalities, Rose quiet and brilliant, Lily bold and entrepreneurial, but they shared an unshakable sense of belonging, of being loved, of having not just a family, but a community. Your daughters are remarkable, the principal told Vivian and Caleb at parent-teacher conferences. All three of them are, Vivian replied, including Emma without hesitation. The first harvest from the agricultural facility's test fields exceeded all projections. The drought-resistant wheat yielded 30% more than traditional varieties with half the water. Farmers from 3 states came to observe, to learn, to hope. This could save us, one farmer from Nebraska said, examining the grain. After 7 years of drought, this could actually save us. That's the idea, Caleb said. But success brought challenges. Other communities wanted their own facilities. Vivian was pulled into expansion discussions, investment meetings, the gravitational pull of empire building that she'd tried to escape. I'm losing you again, Caleb said one evening, finding her on her laptop at midnight for the 4th night running. No, yup, she said, but her protest was weak. Vivian, you can't save every farm in America. But I could try. At what cost? The girls barely saw you this week. Emma's leaving for college in 3 months. These moments, we don't get them back. She closed the laptop, tears in her eyes. It's hard. Saying no when I have the power to say yes. Knowing people need help, and I could provide it. You're providing it. Here, in Cedar Valley. One community at a time. That's enough, Vivian. You're enough. She crawled into his arms, this powerful woman who commanded millions but sometimes needed reminding of her own worth beyond the corporate sphere. How do you do it? She asked. Stay grounded? Stay focused on what matters. I remember Margaret, he said simply. She had 6 months from diagnosis to death. 6 months to teach me that time is the only real currency and love is the only real investment. Everything else is just noise. Emma's graduation day dawned perfect, clear skies and warm sun. The entire extended family attended. Caleb and Vivian, the twins, David and Sarah, now engaged. Martha Henderson, who claimed grandmother privileges. Half of Cedar Valley, really. As Emma walked across the stage, Caleb saw Margaret in her smile, in her grace, in her determined stride toward the future. But he also saw Vivian's influence in her confidence, her expanded dreams, her belief that she could change the world. She's going to be amazing, Vivian whispered. She already is. The graduation party at the ranch lasted past midnight. Emma danced with the twins, taught Priya to line dance, even convinced Richard Blackstone, visiting for the occasion, to attempt the electric slide. As the night wound down, she found her parents, both of them, sitting on the porch. Thank you, she said simply. Both of you, for everything. You don't have to thank us, Caleb started. Yes, I do. Dad, you kept us going when we could have fallen apart. Vivian, you showed us we could be more than just surviving. Together, you gave all of us, a family I didn't think we'd have again. Emma, Vivian's voice broke. I know you're not my biological mother, Emma continued, but you're my mom in every way that counts. You've been since the day you stood in that barn helping deliver a foal, covered in mess but refusing to quit. That's when I knew Dad had found the right person. They sat together in the summer darkness. Three people who'd found each other through tragedy and choice built something beautiful from broken pieces. Your mom would have loved this, Vivian said eventually. She does love it, Emma replied. I dream about her sometimes. She's always smiling, always pointing toward you all, like she's saying, see, I told you it would work out. August brought the agricultural facility's official opening. The Secretary of Agriculture attended, as did the governor, several senators, and media from around the world. But the most important attendees were the local farmers who would benefit from the research, the young people who'd found jobs, the community that had embraced change without losing itself. 5 years ago, the governor said in his speech, Cedar Valley was dying. Today, it's a model for rural renewal across America. This happened because of partnership, vision, and the courage to believe that different worlds could become one. But the real speech that mattered came from Lily, who'd somehow convinced the organizers to let her speak. She stood at the podium, barely tall enough to reach the microphone, and said, My daddy Caleb says that plants grow better when different kinds are planted together. They help each other, share nutrients, make the soil richer. That's what Cedar Valley is now. Different kinds of people planted together, making everything richer. Thank you for letting us grow here. The applause was thunderous, but Caleb barely heard it. He was watching his daughter, because that's what she was, biology be damned, with tears streaming down his face. Vivian's hand found his, squeezing tight. We did it, she whispered. We're doing it, he corrected. Every day. Fall came with Emma's departure for college. The goodbye was harder than expected, even though she'd only be 2 hours away. The twins cried. Vivian cried. Even Caleb's eyes weren't entirely dry as they watched her drive away in the used truck they'd bought her, loaded with everything she needed for her new life. The house feels empty, Rose said that evening. She'll be back, Lily assured her. Emma always comes back. And she did. Every other weekend at first, then monthly as she settled into college life. She brought friends, diverse, brilliant young people who fell in love with Cedar Valley's unique blend of traditional and progressive. Some stayed, finding jobs at the facility or the tech companies, adding new threads to the community tapestry. Winter arrived gently that year, as if nature itself was acknowledging the harmony Cedar Valley had achieved. The ranch thrived. The facility's research continued breaking ground. The town grew but didn't lose itself, maintaining the balance between preservation and progress. One evening in December, as snow fell softly outside, Vivian found Caleb in the barn with a mare about to foal. It's starting, he said. She sat beside him in the straw, designer clothes forgotten, and watched the miracle of birth unfold once again. The foal came easily this time, standing within minutes, wobbling on legs that would one day run like wind across the valley. Remember the first time we did this together? She asked. You mean when I proposed? When you saw me clearly for the first time, not the CEO, not the billionaire, just a woman who wanted to help bring life into the world. I always saw you clearly, he said, from that first day when you stood in my driveway, covered in river mud, thanking me for saving your girls. Our girls. Our girls, he agreed. They heard footsteps, and the twins appeared in the barn door, bundled in winter coats, eyes bright with excitement. Can we name the baby horse? Rose asked. What would you call it? Caleb asked. Hope, Lily said immediately. Hope, Rose agreed. Vivian and Caleb exchanged glances, remembering another time, another crisis, when hope had seemed impossible. Now it stood before them on wobbly legs, surrounded by family, witnessed by love. Hope it is, Caleb said. As they walked back to the house together, the twins chattering about the foal, snow painting the world clean and new, Caleb thought about the journey that had brought them here. A bus accident, a flood, a mine collapse, corporate battles. Each crisis had built them stronger, brought them closer, made them more. What are you thinking? Vivian asked, noting his quiet smile. About how Margaret always said the best things grow from the hardest ground. She was right. She usually was. They reached the house to find Emma's truck in the driveway, home for winter break a day early. She stood on the porch with someone,
a young man from her program, shy smile, gentle eyes. "Mom, Dad," she called out, and both Caleb and Vivian answered because that's who they were now. "This is Marcus. I wanted you to meet him." The twins immediately began interrogating the poor boy. Vivian started planning dinner. Caleb shook Marcus's hand, seeing in the young man's nervous respect an echo of himself at that age, meeting Margaret's father for the first time. Life was circular, he realized. Love led to loss, led to love again. Endings became beginnings. Strangers became family. And sometimes, if you were very lucky and very brave, you got to build something that would outlast you all. A community, a legacy, a love story written not in words but in lives intertwined. "Welcome to Cedar Valley," he told Marcus, meaning it in ways the boy couldn't yet understand. "Welcome to the family." Inside, the house filled with voices. Emma was telling stories from school. The twins were showing off their latest drawings. Vivian was somehow managing to cook while coordinating something on her phone. Probably another innovation, another opportunity, another chance to change the world. Marcus turned out to be exactly the kind of young man Caleb would have chosen for Emma. Serious about his studies, respectful without being obsequious, and genuinely fascinated by the integration of technology and traditional farming that Cedar Valley represented. Over dinner, he revealed he'd grown up on a small farm in Iowa before his parents lost it to corporate agriculture. "That's why Emma's stories about this place caught my attention," he said, helping clear dishes without being asked. "You've done something here that everyone said was impossible, saved small farming without selling out to big agriculture." "We didn't do it alone," Vivian said, watching approvingly as Marcus automatically fell into the kitchen's rhythm, drying dishes as Emma washed. "It took the entire community choosing change over comfort. And a bus full of drowning children," Lily added matter-of-factly, causing Marcus to nearly drop a plate. "It's a long story," Emma told him, though her eyes were on Caleb. "Dad's a hero who doesn't like being called one." "Most real heroes don't," Marcus said, and something in his tone suggested he understood more than his 20 years should allow. That night, after Marcus had been settled in the guest room and the twins finally stopped interrogating him about his intentions toward their sister, Caleb found Vivian standing at their bedroom window, watching snow fall steadily across the ranch. "He's good for her," she said. "It's been 3 days. You can't know that." "I knew you were good for me in 3 minutes." She turned to face him. "Remember? You refused my money, looked me straight in the eye, and told me saving my daughters was payment enough. That's when I knew you were different. And when did I know about you? When I came back. After you explicitly told me not to give you money, and I showed up with groceries instead. You could have been angry. Instead, you smiled, this tiny surprise smile, and said, 'Smart woman. You are a smart woman. Smart enough to marry you.'" A crash from downstairs interrupted them, followed by guilty giggling. They found the twins attempting to spy on Emma and Marcus, who were sitting quite innocently by the fire, looking at photos from Emma's first semester. "Bed! Now!" Vivian commanded, and the twins scurried away, though their whispered speculation continued down the hallway. "Were we ever that young?" Marcus asked Emma, unaware of the parental surveillance. "Younger," Emma replied. "And older, too, in some ways. Losing a parent ages you quickly, but finding new family, that makes you young again." Caleb and Vivian retreated, giving the young couple their privacy. Some conversations weren't meant for parental ears, and trust, Caleb had learned, was the greatest gift you could give your children. The next morning brought urgent news. The agricultural facility's latest trial had produced extraordinary results. Corn that could thrive in soil damaged by industrial runoff, potentially reclaiming millions of acres of poisoned farmland. "This changes everything," the lead researcher, Dr. Patricia Kim, told them via video call. "But we need more land for testing, more diverse soil conditions. The Department of Agriculture wants to fast-track this, but only if we can prove it works beyond Cedar Valley." "How much land?" Vivian asked, already calculating possibilities. 500 acres minimum, different soil types, different contamination levels, and we need it within driving distance of the facility. Caleb and Vivian exchanged glances. They both knew what this meant, expansion on a scale that could fundamentally alter Cedar Valley's character. "We need a town meeting," Caleb said. The meeting 3 nights later was the largest yet. Even people from neighboring counties attended, drawn by rumors of opportunity and afraid of being left behind. The high school gymnasium couldn't hold everyone. They had to set up screens in the cafeteria and auditorium. "This is what we've always feared," Carl Brennan said, his voice carrying the weight of his 78 years. "Getting too big, too fast. Losing what makes us who we are." "But Carl," Jake Patterson countered, "my son Tommy just got his engineering degree. He wants to come home, but there's no job for him here unless we grow. How many of our kids are in the same situation?" The debate raged for hours. Old fears against new hopes, tradition against innovation, the known against the possible. Through it all, Caleb and Vivian said little, letting the community wrestle with its own future. Finally, Rose stood up. At 9 years old, she rarely spoke at town meetings, preferring to observe and calculate. But when she did speak, people listened. "My teacher says ecosystems need diversity to survive," she said, her young voice somehow commanding attention. "If everything's the same, one disease can kill it all. But if there's variety, the system adapts and survives. Maybe Cedar Valley needs to be diverse too. Not just farming or just technology, but both and more." "From the mouths of babes," someone murmured, and the tone shifted. The vote was closer than ever before. 189 for, 178 against. But it passed. Cedar Valley would expand carefully, thoughtfully, but it would expand. "You know what this means," Vivian told Caleb that night. "We're not just transforming one town anymore. We're creating a model for rural America." No pressure then. All the pressure. But we've handled worse. The land acquisition proved complicated. Most farmers weren't willing to sell, even with generous offers. It was Marcus, surprisingly, who provided the solution. "What if they don't sell?" he suggested over breakfast. "What if they lease the land for testing, maintain ownership, and share in the profits if the crops succeed?" Emma beamed at him. "That's brilliant." "It's fair," Marcus corrected. "Farmers keep their heritage. The facility gets its testing grounds. Everyone benefits." Vivian was already pulling out her phone, calling lawyers and accountants. Within a week, she'd structured a deal that would become a Harvard Business School case study. The Cedar Valley Cooperative, where land remained in family hands, but resources were pooled for research and development. "Your boyfriend's smart," Lily told Emma. "He's not my—" "He held your hand during movie night and looked at you like Daddy looks at Mom," Rose added. Emma blushed, but didn't deny it. Spring arrived with unusual drama. A late blizzard in April trapped half the town, including a group of potential investors Vivian had been courting for the facility's expansion. They were city people, unused to nature's violence, and the 3 days they spent stranded at the ranch changed everything. "This is insane," one investor, a hedge fund manager named Robert, said as he helped Caleb deliver a calf in the barn. "I manage billions of dollars, and here I am, covered in afterbirth, in the middle of nowhere." "Nowhere?" Lily asked, having appointed herself the investor's guide. "This is somewhere. This is Cedar Valley. This is home." By the time the roads cleared, the investors had committed not just to the facility, but to the larger vision. They'd seen the community come together during crisis, watched neighbors share generators and food, witnessed the ranch operate as a refuge for anyone in need. "It's not about the money," Robert told Vivian as he prepared to leave. "It's about being part of something real." "Do you know how rare that is in our world?" "I do now," Vivian replied, thinking of all the boardrooms she'd conquered that felt less significant than one successful calving in a barn. Emma graduated college in 3 years instead of 4, driven by purpose and aided by advanced placement credits. Her thesis on integrated agricultural systems caught the attention of the USDA, who offered her a position that would let her work from Cedar Valley while traveling to implement similar programs nationally. "I want to do what you and Mom did here," she told Caleb the day she graduated. "But everywhere. That's ambitious. I learned from the best." Marcus had graduated too, and his proposal to Emma came as a surprise to no one except Emma herself. He did it in the barn naturally, where Caleb had proposed to Vivian, with the same mix of chaos and beauty that defined Cedar Valley life. "Yes," Emma said through tears. "Yes, of course, yes."
The twins, now 11 and already taller than their mother, immediately began planning the wedding with an intensity that would have impressed corporate event planners. "Summer wedding," Lily declared. "In the meadow." "With horses," Rose added, "and the whole town." "And chocolate cake," they said in unison. But before the wedding could happen, crisis struck again. David relapsed. After 3 years of sobriety, the pressure of a promotion, a fight with Sarah, and the anniversary of his divorce from Vivian combined to break his resolve. He showed up at the ranch drunk, demanding to see his daughters. "David, you need to leave," Vivian said firmly, positioning herself between him and the house where the twins were doing homework. "They're my kids." "And you're drunk," which means you don't get to see them. That was the deal. "Screw the deal. Screw you. Screw this perfect little life you've built on my ruins." Caleb appeared, Emma and Marcus behind him. "David, let's take a walk. Cool down." "Don't pretend to be my friend, rancher boy." "You stole my family." "Nobody stole anything," Caleb said calmly. "You made choices. Now you need to make another one. Leave now, get help, and we'll figure this out. Or stay and lose everything you've rebuilt." For a moment, violence seemed possible. David's fists clenched, his body coiled with the rage of a man facing his own failures. Then he saw the twins watching from the window, their faces frightened, and something in him broke. "I'm sorry," he whispered, then louder. "I'm so sorry." He left, checking himself into rehab that night. The twins were shaken, but not destroyed, held steady by the family that surrounded them. "Will he be okay?" Rose asked that night. "I don't know," Vivian answered honestly, "but we'll be okay." "No matter what." "Because we're together," Lily said. "Because we're together." The wedding happened in August, perfect in its imperfection. A sudden rainstorm forced everyone into the barn, which Emma declared was better anyway, the place where her father had found love again, where life began and was celebrated. David attended, 90 days sober, sitting in the back with Sarah, who'd taken him back with conditions. He cried when Caleb walked Emma down the aisle, understanding that this was what real fatherhood looked like: showing up, staying steady, loving without conditions. "You did good," he told Caleb at the reception. "Better than I ever could have." "You're doing good too. Recovery isn't a straight line." "No, but having something to recover for helps." He watched his daughters dancing with their sister, laughing as Marcus attempted to learn the twins' complicated TikTok choreography. "Thank you for keeping them safe. For being the father I couldn't be." "You're their father too. That's never changed." Richard Blackstone, who'd somehow become a regular fixture at family events, gave a speech that surprised everyone with its emotion. "I've conquered corporations, destroyed competitors, built empires," he said, champagne glass raised. "But watching this family, this community, build something from love rather than leverage, it's taught me there are different kinds of power, better kinds. To Emma and Marcus, may you build what Caleb and Vivian have, a love that transforms everything it touches." As fall arrived, the agricultural facility announced its breakthrough had been confirmed. The contamination-resistant crops worked everywhere they'd been tested. The technology would be open-sourced, available to any farmer who needed it, a decision that cost Vivian millions in potential profits, but gained her something worth more. "You're insane," one board member told her over video call. "You could have licensed this for billions." "I have billions. What I needed was purpose. This technology will save farms, feed people, restore damaged land. That's worth more than money. The shareholders won't see it that way. Then they can sell their shares. I'll buy them." She did too, taking the company private in a move that shocked Wall Street but made perfect sense to anyone who knew the woman she'd become. Winter came gently, as if recognizing the family needed peace after a year of growth and change. The twins entered middle school, where Rose immediately took over the math club, and Lily started a business club that somehow made more money than the PTA. "Your daughters are forces of nature," the principal told them at conferences. "All 4 of them," Vivian corrected, including Emma and the baby she'd just announced she was carrying. The pregnancy news had come as a shock to everyone, especially Emma and Marcus. "We wanted to wait," Emma had said, "but apparently life had other plans." "Life usually does," Caleb replied, remembering another unplanned pregnancy years ago that had given him Emma herself. As spring approached with Emma growing rounder and the facility expanding to 3 buildings, Cedar Valley faced its biggest test yet. A multinational corporation wanted to buy the entire valley, every farm, every business, every home, to create what they called America's first fully integrated agricultural innovation community. The offer was staggering. Each family would receive enough to retire wealthy. The company promised to maintain the character of Cedar Valley while bringing in resources that dwarfed even Vivian's considerable wealth. "It's a good offer," Carl Brennan admitted at the emergency town meeting. "My grandkids could go to any college, do anything they wanted." "But would they have a home to come back to?" Martha Henderson asked. "Would Cedar Valley exist except as some corporate theme park?" The debate was different this time. People weren't afraid of change anymore. They'd proven they could adapt. The question was whether they wanted to. "I've been part of corporate takeovers," Vivian said when called upon to speak. "I've been the one making offers like this. They promise to maintain character, preserve culture, respect history. They mean it at first, but corporations are machines that must grow to survive. Eventually, efficiency trumps character. Profit trumps community. You'll be rich, but you won't be you." "So you're saying we should refuse?" someone asked. "I'm saying you should decide what matters more, wealth or home. There's no wrong answer, just consequences." Young Tommy Patterson stood up. "I left for college because there was nothing here. I came back because you all built something. If we sell, where do I go? Where do any of us go? You can't rebuild community. Once it's gone, it's gone." The vote wasn't close. 267 against selling, 43 in favor. Cedar Valley would remain Cedar Valley. Corporate money be damned. The corporation tried pressure tactics, lawsuits over water rights, challenges to zoning, attempts to poach the facility's researchers. But they hadn't counted on Vivian Stone having reformed from corporate raider to community defender. She fought back with precision and ruthlessness that reminded everyone why she'd been feared in boardrooms across the globe. "You made an enemy," Richard Blackstone warned her. "Good. I was getting soft." "Soft? You just orchestrated a defensive strategy that will be taught in business schools, while making cookies for the school bake sale. Exactly my point. You've become something new, powerful and human. It's terrifying and wonderful." Emma's baby came early, as ward babies apparently did. Caleb was in the fields when the call came, racing to the hospital still covered in dust and sweat. Vivian was already there with the twins, who were vibrating with excitement about becoming aunts. "It's a boy," Emma gasped between contractions. "We're naming him Caleb. Caleb Marcus Ward." "Emma, you don't have to." "Yes, we do. You taught me what a father should be. Now you'll teach him." The delivery was long but uncomplicated. When little Caleb finally arrived, screaming and perfect, the room was full, not just of family, but of community. Martha Henderson had somehow talked her way past the nurses. Jake Patterson brought flowers. Even Mrs. Crawford appeared with a baby blanket she'd knitted herself. "This is highly irregular," the nurse protested. "Welcome to Cedar Valley," Vivian told her. "We do things differently here." As Caleb held his grandson for the first time, he thought about circles closing and opening. Margaret would have been a grandmother. She would have loved this moment, this child, this sprawling, chaotic family they'd built from loss and love. "She's here," Emma said softly, reading his thoughts as she always could. "I can feel her. She's so proud of you, Dad. Of all of us." The baby opened his eyes, ward eyes, the same brown that had looked back at Caleb from Emma's face all these years, and grabbed his grandfather's finger with surprising strength. "Hello, little one," Caleb whispered. "Welcome to the family. Welcome to Cedar Valley. Welcome to this beautiful, broken, rebuilt world we've made for you." Outside, spring was turning the valley green. The facility's crops were growing tall. The ranch was busy with new life. The town was thriving with purpose and prosperity that belonged to everyone who'd chosen to stay and fight for it. "We did it," Vivian said, standing beside him as they watched their grandson sleep. "We actually did it." "Did what?" "Built something that will outlast us all." She was right, Caleb knew. Looking around the hospital room at their blended, extended, impossible family, he saw the future, not just in baby Caleb, but in the twins growing into brilliant young women, in Emma and Marcus building on what had been started, in the community that had chosen connection over cash. Your move saved us, he told Vivian, coming here, investing in us, refusing to give up even when we resisted. Your love saved me, she countered, showing me there was more to life than conquering. That building together was better than building alone. The twins had fallen asleep in their chairs, exhausted from excitement. Emma was dozing while Marcus held the baby. Outside, Cedar Valley went about its business. Old-timers and newcomers, farmers and technologists, all part of something unprecedented and irreplaceable.
What now? Vivian asked. Now we live, Caleb said. We raise this baby. We grow the business. We strengthen the community. We face whatever comes next. Together. Together. A knock at the door interrupted them. Dr. Patricia Kim entered with a tablet, her face bright with excitement. I'm sorry to intrude on the family moment, but I had to tell you immediately. The UN wants to implement our agricultural program in 12 countries. They're calling it the Cedar Valley Protocol. We're going to help feed the world. Emma stirred, having heard despite her exhaustion. Mom's company, Dad's ranch, and now this. We're really changing things, aren't we? Change starts small, Caleb said, looking at his grandson. One person, one choice, one moment of courage. Then it ripples out, touching everything. Like when you jumped into that bus, Vivian added. Like when you came back with groceries. Like when Emma stood up at that first town meeting. Like when the twins chose to trust again after their world fell apart. They were all crying now, happy tears that celebrated not an ending but a continuation. The story that had begun with loss had become about gain, not replacing what was gone, but building something new alongside the memories. I love you all so much, Emma said, reaching for her family. Every complicated, beautiful piece of this puzzle we've made. As the sun set over Cedar Valley, painting the mountains gold, the Wardstone family settled in for the night. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. It always did. The facility would grow, the ranch would evolve, the town would continue its delicate dance between preservation and progress. But tonight, they were complete. A grandfather who'd learned to love again, a CEO who'd learned that power meant more than money, twins who'd gained a father they'd never expected, a daughter who'd found her mother in an unexpected place, a new father holding his son, and a baby who would grow up knowing that family wasn't just about blood, but about choice, commitment, and the courage to build something beautiful from broken pieces. Outside the hospital window, Cedar Valley spread out in the gathering darkness, lights twinkling like stars brought to earth. It had been saved, transformed, reborn through the unlikely love of a rancher and a billionaire, through a community's choice to embrace change without losing itself, through the simple, radical act of people choosing to care for each other. Thank you, Caleb whispered, though whether to Vivian, to God, or to Margaret's memory, he wasn't sure. For what? Vivian asked. For jumping off that cliff into my life. Best fall I ever took, she replied, kissing him softly while their family slept around them, safe and whole and home. The night deepened, wrapping Cedar Valley in darkness that wasn't ending but resting, gathering strength for tomorrow's possibilities. In the agricultural facility, seeds sprouted in test plots that would feed millions. In the ranch's barn, the foal named Hope stood on legs growing stronger by the day. In the town's homes, families settled in for the night, some old, some new, all part of the tapestry that had been woven from crisis and courage. And in the hospital room, 3 generations of a family that shouldn't exist but did anyway kept watch over their newest member, their love a light that would guide him through whatever storms might come, their story a testament to the power of second chances, unexpected connections, and the beautiful impossibility of love conquering all.